Sounds of Stadia podcast, episode number 87. You join us for another weekly show, rounding up all your gaming and Stadia news for what is the longest running Stadia podcast this side of Google Maps. You join myself, Chris, alongside my two lovely co-hosts once again in the co-hosting seats. We have the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
How are you all doing today?
We are all doing fine today. That was a very formal introduction.
Yeah.
And above him, the techie teacher himself, Mr. Tom. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Thank you very much, guys.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no, I'm doing really good. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
I just want to address, I don't know why I've suddenly started switching your two introductions. It could be something to do with doing Resident Evil like four shows in a row. My brain's like the flick switch.
You just got me.
Yeah, the flick switch on the railroad tracks is now flicked over to. Even though I very consciously went there to say techie teacher, the words that came out my mouth were man of many pixels, and I'd already done it by that point. But of course, we three are here once again to give you, our lovely viewers and listeners out there, all the Stadia and gaming news rounded up for your listening and viewing pleasure. And we have a fantastic show for you this week. In light of very little direct Stadia news, we've done some digging and garnered all of the sexy stories we possibly could have done. We're going to be talking about the Summer Games Fest coming up and where the hell Stadia are in all of that. We're going to be talking Netflix entering the cloud gaming market, and are they actually going to be the Netflix of games? We'll talk about that. Plus some new games announced for Stadia, in and amongst all the other exciting news stories like Stadia getting a social media manager. But we'll get to all that in a short while. Of course, I'm joined by my lovely two co-hosts for episode 87. So, gentlemen, let's kick things off by telling our lovely audience what we need them to do. Bring it in. I can see Tom's already listening.
Right,
Bring
I'm
it in.
I'm ready for this.
Speak in the microphone.
All right.
If you haven't done so already, click like, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you are kept in the loop with all the amazing content we make for your enjoyment here at Sounds of Stadia. That comes in the form of weekly Let's Plays, community streams, topical SideQuest episodes where we go off the critical path and discuss a specific topic in a lot more detail when one of us remembers to record the audio. We also do. We also have. I know. I can keep. I can keep going back to it. And of course, all of that content is readily available on our channels and social media platforms. Follow us all over on Twitter if you haven't done so already for our tasty bites when it comes to Stadia and gaming news stories. I will let that rest eventually, Richie. It still seems fresh at this moment in time. And of course,
there's at least a couple more weeks in it.
definitely drag that one out. Until I make a mistake, I could keep going. That won't be long. And of course, we love you all out there, listeners, viewers. It's amazing. We come back every week to talk about this kind of stuff because it's all made all the more easier for your love and support that you share with us on social feeds, in our Discord. If you've not done so already, jump over to our Discord. We really would appreciate you joining us there for more chitter-chatter. As we do, lovely conversations happening over there. Follow us on Facebook, all the usual rigmarole stuff. And if you want to support the channel a little bit further, you can click join our YouTube channel, where from as little as 99p, you get our content, most of our content, up to 5-6 days earlier. So get in on that if you so please. But gentlemen, what I like to do is start the week off, as it seems to be the norm right now, is just catching up with what we've all been playing. We've all had busy work weeks, full-time jobs, all that adulting that we have to go do, and games are how we escape from all that. So, Tom, are you still digging away in Valhalla, or have we moved on to other things? What are we up to at the moment?
I actually haven't played anything this past week whatsoever. Like, literally, I haven't touched a video game whatsoever. It has been the longest drought of video games I've had in quite some time. I have, however, been binging Star Wars Clone Wars because I still need to catch up with that. But I'm making really good progress on that now and really, really invested in it. So, yeah.
Is that in preparation to move over to Bad Batch?
It is, yeah. It's partially Bad Batch. I want to try and get through all of the additional Star Wars content that I've not actually seen. So I'm probably going to go through Rebels as well, because I've not touched Rebels whatsoever. Not even a single episode. And I've also you can't quite tell on the shelves over there, but I'm digging into the Star Wars, not expanded universe, but in the literature world as well. So digging into the Thrawn books. So just trying to build up a little bit of extra knowledge outside the movies, really. So
massive Star Wars binge then.
Definitely.
Certainly. And there's definitely nothing wrong with that. It's one of my favourite pastimes. And I think especially with the Thrawn stuff, he's definitely going to be a future villain on the big screen at some point. They're building towards that. So the more you know, the more you know. And I'm sure there'll be some games we're going to talk about today, Tom, that'll entice you back in to the world of the world of gaming. And below him, of course, Richie, what have you been playing? I have a sneaky suspicion, but do tell.
I went back to the Vineyard, Tom. I completed the story mode of 100 days without bankrupting us.
Nice.
I had to do it, and it's one of them games. I think I'm just going to keep jumping back in every now and again. The reason I brought that one up is because there wasn't the one Chris wanted me to talk about.
I thought you were going to say you went back to the Vineyard and just burnt it all down.
No. I'm making some nice wines. Yeah,
Tom.
But I've started Mass Effect, but I haven't got very far yet because I just haven't had a chance. But
okay,
chipping away.
Thoughts so far?
So far, I'm enjoying it, but I literally have just got to the Citadel.
Okay.
That's all
I would say is in the early parts, it's again, it's like most things when you're establishing an IP. I think it does take a while to build up to the good stuff, really. But yeah it's got some great things coming.
I'm learning a lot of lore.
Yes,
at the moment
there's a ton of lore.
All
the races, all about the just everything, the Spectres, etc.
The internal politics of the Citadel, all that sort of stuff. But
I'm yet to start it yet because I have an issue I'm currently dealing with Watch Dogs Legion that I've told Richie about. The achievement status on that game is broken to a point where there's 3 collectibles for playing a game of darts in every pub, having a drink in every pub, which normally I'd be quite happy to do in both real life and a digital world. And the game stopped tracking the actual event. So I played every game, I drank every drink, and deliver Amazon parcels you've kind of got to do within it. It's like a little delivery mission. Game stopped tracking. Had a look at my Ubisoft Connect app. It just locks out at like 12 out of 20 drinks, 10 out of 21 dark games, and 19 out of 20 deliveries.
Ooh.
Rebooted the game, and I've had to since start a whole new game from scratch, and it does seem to be tracking, but there's still a delivery one I've got to go. I spoke to Ubisoft support, and just that game is now soured for me, and once it's done, it is dead to me, and I'm going to move on to Mass Effect, because that's what it's doing. It's holding me back from starting Mass Effect.
That's fair.
But yeah, that's what I've been playing this week. And did you see spoke to Richie about, but the No Man's Sky Mass Effect Easter egg that they added in?
Yes,
that was awesome.
In the Normandy, absolutely.
That was fantastic. I was saying to Richie how if I had this nostalgia for that franchise and I was playing Mass Effect and the Normandy rocks up and can be part of your crew, that would have been mind blowing. Thinking like if you had such a love for the franchise and seeing it in another IP, it would have been amazing to see that show up. But can't wait, looking forward to it. It's definitely next on my radar. I'm probably going to start at some point this week. So exciting times. And over on Stadia, of course, me and Richie finished Resident Evil Village. It took much longer than we anticipated. On Thursday, we did part 4 of our Let's Play series. The whole game is now completed. Side mini bosses and everything. 4 streams, 4 parts. Go check it out. Available right now on youtube.com/Sounds of Stadia. The final one, Tom, took us till 1 a.m. on Thursday. It went a lot longer. We got into Heisenberg, who we just dubbed Magneto because he's got metal powers. Went into a factory section, and the chat was saying, it's a little bit longer. There's a lot to do. It's a big section, and we were like, nah, the game can't be that long. It was probably one of the most arduous, if not the most complex, multi-layered part of the game. And yeah, we definitely got lost and confused a couple of times, but we made it. We made it. Interesting title. Really enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed my time. I'm definitely a Resident Evil fan, having never really played the games prior to 7. I know me and Richie, we dabbled in 2 in the past, and I've played like other versions of it, but I've never fully played a game from start to finish. So 7 and 8 done 2 months back to back. Can't wait for what's next, which in theory should be, why am I blanking on the name of the game that was supposed to be within it? Reverse.
Reverse.
And us three all need to jump into Mercenaries at some point as well.
Will.
And check that one out. But yeah, go check that out if you've not done so already. I know a lot of you are playing Resident Evil and you were waiting to finish it yourself before checking it out. So it's all available. Good to go at your own viewing pleasure. And next up, final point of kind of the housekeeping introduction, as we do here. Thursday night live stream. We've got another one this Thursday. We're getting away from the single player games. We're going to do something more community focused. So check us out this Thursday, 8 p.m. UK time, British summer time. And we'll be playing something with you, the lovely community out there. So do check by and play with us. We haven't decided on it yet. We'll see what the game might be. Might be some PUBG, might be some racing. We'll find out. But we want to get back, re-engage with you amazing people out there. So then, housekeeping out the way. We're here for episode 87. Lots of news to talk about. So Tom, will you introduce us to the
super sexy special Stadia Story segment, aka...
The news! And as we said, it's a great week for news this week. Not so much Stadia-centric, but the great thing with games is they surpass everything. They envelop everything we talk and love and know. So, news story number 1. Summer Games Fest. It's a thing. Jeff Keighley's doubling down on it with his team there over at the Game Awards crew. I'm pretty sure it's the same guys he uses year in, year out. They've announced their time slots, their date. It's going to be broadcast on Thursday, the 10th of June, 6 p.m. UK time. So it's actually a reasonable hour for us to anticipate. We'll no doubt be covering it on the channel to some degree because there will be games there with the announcement so far that will cover and encapsulate Stadia in some way, shape or form. We hope. They've announced so far that PlayStation, EA and Xbox are certainly going to be there. So this kind of brings us on to, I guess, the big topic of the episode in a way, is that we now know about E3. We now know about Games Fest. These are two huge digital events that are going to be the pillars of the gaming industry in a mere 5 to 6 weeks' time. Where the hell is Google Stadia in this conversation? This is the games industry's peak time of year where they showcase what's on offer, and all we've heard from Stadia is
nothing.
Well, that's just normal. That's what we're used to with Stadia.
But it can't. This is E3 and Summer Games Fest.
I know.
We've said it before, but the last time we had a Connect, forever ago, they had a little cameo at a Ubisoft Forward back in November. I don't know. They need to talk to us as their audience, as shareholders in Google, I guess. And we've got more stories later on, which are going to come back to this. But I'm getting excited for the summer of games. But I'm getting excited for my PS5 more than I am at this point, because I know what I'm going to get.
Stuff there for it.
Yeah, I know I'm playing Ratchet and Clank next month. Can't wait for it. Yeah. I know I'll be playing Horizon Forbidden West at some point, maybe by the end of the year. I know Returnals just came out. I'm currently about to start Mass Effect because it's only available there. And we talk about marketing all the time here on the podcast, but mindshare and public perception and the optics of how a business looks and is faring, it's all well and good Kate coming out saying it's alive and well. It's really time to start showing it now.
You have to show it. It's not just about telling us, you have to show it as well. And being at E3, being at Summer Games Fest, these are the perfect places to show what you're working on. It's literally the point of them.
100%. So to give you a rundown of all the companies taking part, and a lot of them are affiliated with Stadia, which it makes me think something is in the pipes. 2K, Activision, Amazon Games.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's a big point to mention. Annapurna Interactive, Bandai Namco, Battlestate Games, Blizzard Entertainment, Capcom, Devolver Digital, Electronic Arts, Epic Games, Frontier, Gearbox Publishing, Hi-Res Studios, Koch Media, Mediatonic, PlayStation, Psyonix, Riot Games, Saber Interactive, Sega, Steam, Square Enix, Tencent, Warner Brothers, Ubisoft, Wizards of the Coast, never heard of them, but cool name, and Xbox.
Wizards of the Coast, like Dungeons and Dragons sort of stuff,
right.
Usually.
Cool name.
Magic the Gathering.
But out of those collective companies that are actively now promoting themselves at being there, why? I don't know how to really.
Yeah, it's
say it without sounding too pissed off.
It's not good. It just makes me think back to last year when we even had, I can't even remember whether it was the Summer Games Fest or whether it was the IGN Summer of Gaming, where they had the interview with Google Stadia. That was never even marketed. Like, we literally did not know what time it was on, when it was happening. We just knew that it was at some point going to happen. But that's all it was.
We were told they were going to be there, but we never got told what it was going to be.
Yeah.
Or when. So it's like, well, when is it? We want to watch.
And it just kind of comes back to me thinking, are they just relying on these other companies to do their marketing? Like, are they relying on 2K, being he's NBA, he's the next golf game, and the logo is there? Is that all they're relying on, the logo being present? Which we know isn't a reliable thing anyway.
I've got a feeling we're going to see Logo Gate come back around at some point.
Absolutely, because over the last year, they've been inconsistent with the logo is there. We've had games where there's no logo and then the game's turned up.
So drilling down into that, like some of the companies we've listed, like a lot of these publishers and developers have titles on Stadia now, like big titles, like big games, like Bandai Namco. We got Little Nightmares 2 for free, which was phenomenal. Yeah, most of them do. There's some obviously we're still anticipating bigger moves, like the likes of Warner Brothers and stuff. I'm still holding out for the Batman Arkham games and some announcement that Gotham Knights and the Suicide Squad game, Lord of the Rings, Shadow of War and stuff will come across, but it's very mum on everything right now. It's very hush hush, and I don't know. We always say on the podcast we always have honest, open conversations about all things Stadium. We're not just going to shill for them and say they're amazing and stuff. We are always critical when it's required, and as 3 founders and 3 people who've bought into this model, evidently we host a podcast. Yes, so we are going to be biased in some way, just the nature of what we talk about it every week. But there's something really souring about all of this fervour getting built up in the games industry that in a matter of weeks, all eyes will be on Games Fest. It will be on E3 and all the stories that all the amazing trailers and announcements and hype cycles that are going to begin from this particular season. And if you're not in that mix, you don't end up in the finished product, and that's bad for marketing and press and optics. It's just bad 101. It's like there's no way to sugarcoat that. It's bad.
Like, it's a bit cliche, but you've got to be in it to win it. Like, it's as simple as that.
Well, E3 would be a perfect place, I think, for Stadia to come out and go, be honest about what's happened over the last 18 months. Like, things haven't went as well as we'd hoped. However, he's a lot of the good stuff that we have done. Just literally put it out there. And he's a lot of the good stuff that we're working on for the future. And just, that's all they need to do. And then you put some game announcements in amongst that sort of stuff.
Stadia good stuff and gooder stuff.
But it's a perfect opportunity. You will have you could probably get a dedicated hour for a press conference that is where all eyes will be on Stadia, and you could almost set the record straight. It's stop being this kind of forgotten about platform or this joke that a lot of the big games journalists seem to think it is at the moment. Like, you have the opportunity to take the stage, get the spotlight on you, and go, this is what it is. This is what's happening over at Google.
Yeah, because all the big publishers will be covering this entire event. So in between, like, you watch it. I watch at the IGN content where they sit in a studio and they talk about what to expect about the next conference, and then they watch the next conference, and then they break it down after the fact and talk about the games, the announcements, the titles, the excitement of what's coming and what was just shown. If Stadia is in that discussion, they kind of, not by law, but by proxy of their show, they will cover it and they will give it press, and they might have to reevaluate the way they talk about it, because it would be very clear if they went, Xbox amazing, Switch amazing, Amazon, that's interesting, and then Stadia went, oh, it's bad, it's like, they won't be able to do that if it's within the same ecosystem of a full days or weekends event. And I know people out there say we talk about we're needing a roadmap for far too long, but that comes from a place of love. We enjoy Stadia. We know the tech works. We want it to succeed and have a bigger fan base. And I'm under the impression, I'm sure loads of you out there listeners are, that they need to shout about it now. You can't sit silent and just hope things are going to change. You need to be proactive about this and market your product that you've spent so much money in investing in and getting to a working, functional, amazing state. It's now to start sing your own song and go out there and talk about it.
Yeah, in the end of the day, what I want is something to be excited for coming to the platform. And the E3 is the time of year. Summer's Games Fest is the time of year where it's like yeah, this is when you get really hyped of what's coming in the next year or two for games.
Yeah, and even Duncan from Cloudy with Chance Games over on Twitter says, with gamers, it's always the next thing. It's like, now we've had Resident Evil on a Village, and I know he gets a lot of stick for the approach he brings, but he's right. Like, now Resident Evil Village is out, and it's amazing we've got it, but then I finished Resident Evil Village. So now I am on to, what am I playing next? And it's going to be Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, which isn't on Stadia. That's not my fault.
Right.
That's down to deals that were done with EA.
Because Mass Effect didn't come to Stadia, the next 3 games I'm playing are going to be on PlayStation. So I'm unlikely to be buying any big titles on Stadia in that time.
Yep. And Tom, you're reading Star Wars, so
yeah, I mean,
that's none of us playing Stadia for the next.
You're absolutely right, and we, like you said before, Chris, we always harp on about roadmap. We know we're not getting one, but we still think it is a smart idea. Like, it's not going to change the fact that we still believe that it's the right idea to release one, because we do need to know what's coming next so we can invest accordingly. And at the moment, we just don't know. I think this week speaks for itself in the fact that we have, quite frankly, no news that people really care about, like, coming out in terms of like new games or things coming to games. So it's difficult. It puts us in an awkward position, really, because we have to be critical of these things. We can't just jump to their defense, but at the same time, Stadia, you got to give, you've got to give something.
Yeah. So putting a pin in that, then, that's a perfect segue, Tom, over into, I guess, what this week was, which was the This Week on Stadia announcement. We got a Tuesday blog post, as per usual. The Thursday one didn't come. I anticipated it would be pushed to Friday, as has happened in recent weeks. And Friday came and went and nothing happened. So I went in the weekend with the Tuesday blog post, which, to break that down for you guys out there, was Gods Will Fall. The Island of Gods has been conquered, and the DLC is on its way. Valley of the Dormant Gods Part 1, the first of 3 DLCs and content episodes, is available to purchase starting at $7.99 in the Stadia store.
So that's the lead story for the week is DLC for a game, which I'm sure it's a good game. I'm sure there's plenty of people playing it, enjoying it, but it's not a game that really set the world on fire.
It was one of those, if I'm honest, when I read the DLC announcement, I didn't know if it was already out or not yet. Because
I forgot it.
Because
I forgot it existed.
It kind of back to the UI discussion. It's not on my main page when I open the app. It's not on the storefront when I open the storefront. So it's one of those titles that it came out and it's probably lost alphabetically down the list of games, and I just haven't. It's not been in my visual.
In January.
Did it?
Yeah.
Damn.
I played a grand total of 30 minutes of it.
Thoughts?
I'll probably jump back into it at some point, but again,
we probably already discussed Tom playing 30 minutes of it.
Yeah, it's got a decent mechanic to it. I just think that it's very sort of. It was overwhelmed by a lot of other games that came out, like most things, really.
Lost in the mix a little bit.
Yeah.
And so the DLC for that, if you enjoy that game, it's out now. Go check it out. And the second title, which in a weird way, to me, from an optics point of view, looked exactly the same. the two artwork for Gods Will Fall and Outward lined up. This is out now. So Outward, Three Brothers is out now on Stadia, filled with adventure, skills, weapons, recipes, and pets. The Three Brothers expansion takes you through the unique world of Ori, out now for $20 on the Stadia store. And again, visually, kind of looks like the same game to me. No disrespect to the title, but it's one of these smaller games that it doesn't get me excited for whatever reason. Play this one, Tom?
Yeah, I have. Again, I bought Outward when it came out on Stadia. My opinion is that the price is too high. You get a lot for your money, but I still think with sort of not the size of the game, but the quality of the game, I suppose, really, is it doesn't sort of warrant its price point. Will I be getting the DLC? Probably not. It's a ruthless game. It's interesting if you like your really difficult games, like your Dark Souls-esque titles, but it's not the same style of game. It's just an RPG, an action RPG that you play, but you don't really get any special powers. You're basically just a normal person that has to skill up everything. You literally have to learn how to cook, how to survive, etc.
But with pets.
You just but with pets.
What
now.
pets can you have?
With pets.
That part's got me intrigued.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
I'll probably never find out.
So again, forgive my naivety with this one. Is Outward already out on Stadia and is this DLC? Because reading the blog, it's hard to tell whether this is a brand new game because it says Outward: The Three Brothers is out now on Stadia.
Yeah, so the Three Brothers is an expansion. It says that as part of the actual block entry, but I can see where the confusion comes from.
Right. Oh, so the game's called Outward,
yes,
and the DLC is The Three Brothers.
Correct. It came out in November. I think it came out December last year, actually.
So again,
on Stadia.
Sorry, everyone who's like a big fan of that game, but I didn't know this was even on the platform because I must have forgot it came out in November when I was busy playing Valhalla, Watch Dogs, Immortals, Phoenix Rising, Cyberpunk, and all those other huge titles, and I've not seen it in the app in months.
You're right. Again.
So my brain just goes, okay. And the blog post read to me as though it was a brand new title. Outward Three Brothers is out now on Stadia, and I'm reading that thinking that it's a new game for $20.
So ultimately, on the blog post, the two lead stories of it are both just DLC.
Basically, yes.
Which is, I mean, fine if you like these games, but I think DLC is always going to be underwhelming in this sort of post. That's the sort of stuff I usually would expect to read at the bottom. Oh, here's all the DLC that's coming.
Yeah. It just seems unfortunate that after a few weeks of good running and a few months of great pro games that we seem to have hit this dry patch. Like we've suddenly left the oasis and we're now in the desert of nothing.
Yeah.
So I just hope like that the comments from the blog post itself do reflect actively sort of like the community's sort of disdain about how we feel about this sort of blog post. You know, severely depressing, people just posting question marks, underwhelming. It is like we can't deny that. Yeah. We can't deny that. I wasn't excited for the blog post. I wasn't really excited for the sales. We got a ton of Assassin's Creed sales.
It's the same sales though, right? Like,
but it is. Yeah. It's just Ubisoft. It's what Ubisoft do. You can expect one every bloody month. Honestly, any platform that you go to, you can just check out like a Ubisoft title and it will be on sale. 100%. It doesn't matter where you go.
Interesting the end of the Stadia Pro memberships discount says also discounts on the Crew 2, Just Dance and Immortals. I'm like, that's just more Ubisoft games.
Yeah.
So expect more discounts for Pro on more Ubisoft games. And they're all great games, but and again, we know this is like this is just like classic like gamer problems to have, isn't it? Like what's the next biggest thing? But it does really go back to how different this blog would have been if it was talking about Mass Effect launching this week.
Oh yeah.
And we would have all been saying, Mass Effect's out now. Richie, have you played it? Tom, have you played it? The audience have played it. I've seen so many people jump back in. Like all of our friends who are playing Mass Effect, who are huge fans, but they're all playing it elsewhere. And we don't know what business deals have gone on and what's been said and what's been negotiated. And we are still waiting and theorising on what the next two EA titles will be from that 5 agreed games we covered on a SideQuest episode a few weeks back. But and then we didn't get one on Thursday or Friday, like we said, so there wasn't even anything to follow up from this. So the entire week just landed on 2 DLC and a Ubisoft sale.
It feels like they keep doing good moves, but they're not really capitalising on it. It's similar with Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk was a big moment for Stadia because it worked, and then it went quiet again. Yeah. It's like you need to keep going, keep this momentum going. Yeah. Well, okay. Once Cyberpunk's out of the way, what's the next big thing? Resident Evil's come. It's basically now gone. What's the next thing?
Yeah.
As you said, games, we move on quickly. We always want the next new thing. We like our shiny toys. We need what's the new shiny toy?
We do indeed. And we've got more subjects to cover as well in the show that kind of pertain to all this. It's going to be one of those episodes, everyone. Strap in. We're talking about it. Next story of the week as we move away from the blog post is into Netflix. And the reason we want to talk about Netflix, we mentioned at the top of the show, Netflix may go all in on gaming, says a report that's came out this week. So we've joked, and Stadia has been criticised for being the Netflix of games and then not being the Netflix of games. Netflix could in fact be the Netflix of games because this week it was announced that they're looking at their value, the variety, the quality of the content. They've put a statement out saying we're continually expanding our offering from series to documentaries, film, etc., etc. We've had things in the past that was on the lines of Bandersnatch and interactive things. What else did the Unbreak? What was the thing with Bear Grylls? Man vs. Wild, I want to say, where you could choose his path. That was
UV
another
Wild.
thing. UV Wild, yeah. Man versus Wild, Man versus Food. They're different things. But either way, yeah, it was Charlie Brooker, I think, did Bandersnatch for Netflix, and you interacted and made decisions, kind of like a Telltale game, right? That's the whole crux of it. And Netflix, again, cloud gaming isn't probably the biggest stretch from what they do now. Their entire business is based on streaming content to 1,000,001 devices, which is, in essence, what Stadia does, just with a return input as opposed to just hitting play. Where do you think there's any concrete faith in this platform, or is this just Netflix trying to diverge their kind of assets, I guess?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this one, because I actually read this article earlier in the week, but I only really looked at the headline. I didn't look too deeply into it. When I first saw the headline, my thoughts actually initially just went to the fact that I thought they were going to dive into more video game related sort of like TV series and films after the success of The Witcher and Castlevania and the likes there. So my initial thought was that it was looking at that, but like looking at the article now and hearing what you've said, you can absolutely see that they are genuinely looking into diving into the interactive media industry. Essentially, they want to look at producing video games. They want to look at creating their own things, like you said, like the Bandersnatch, the UV Wild, and so on there. And I actually think that might be what Netflix really do need to do in order to like sort of increase their market share, because it has been dropping like month by month since the arrival of things like Disney Plus and the like.
Yeah. Looking at, like you mentioned, the kind of reverse of that, but they've seen massive success with the likes of The Witcher recently, and we know they're going to double down with Resident Evil coming. The Castlevania franchise is fantastic if you've not watched that. Season 4 is out now. Tomb Raider, they announced a Tomb Raider series as well. So they definitely have their toes dipped into this industry. I'm a big believer, even though Netflix was one of the front runners, they need to diverge purely based on the fact that Disney have bought everything up, and they're now starting to take all their IP and their licenses in-house. Amazon do the same thing. They have like Lord of the Rings content and stuff coming in the future. Apple TV are doing their own thing. You've got Hulu and HBO Max and stuff. Yeah. Netflix suffer because their original content, for as good as it does, when I scroll through Netflix now, I see so many Netflix originals and think, oh, no, scroll past. Whereas I scroll through Disney and I'm like, nostalgia. I recognise that. Yeah. They've got Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel. Netflix don't have that, and more time goes on, they lose these licenses and IP, and we've seen Marvel movies be taken away, Disney movies be taken away, and if you're at Netflix right now, you don't have any other income to fall back on. Disney has their parks and everything else, and the cruise lines and everything. Apple has their phones and iPads, and Netflix is just the streaming content, so diverging makes sense.
They do absolutely have the IP, not the IP, the infrastructure, to back up the idea of jumping into streaming video games, though, because obviously they wouldn't have built this sort of kingdom that they've got, essentially, of digital streaming. I mean, Netflix, essentially, this whole idea of like, Stadia is going to be the Netflix of gaming. Well, it's purely in the moniker, isn't it? It came from what Netflix were able to accomplish. And if Netflix were able to accomplish that, then surely there's got to be some mastermind behind the scene who is able to put the right ideas together to be able to make a success out of this. So,
I mean, they've got it kind of down, right? They've got the streaming on all devices. Like Netflix is literally on everything.
Yep.
Like there's not a thing you can't watch it on. Their CEO, Reed Hastings, actually acknowledged a great quote from him. He acknowledges Fortnite. In his quote, he says, "We compete with and lose to Fortnite more than HBO in terms of streaming usage." Or like, I guess like screen time more than streaming usage, I guess. Yeah. But that's an interesting take from the CEO to think like, actually, we lose more viewed hours to a game than we do another rival streaming service. So yeah, the money's there, and
it just goes to show you that people are starting to think of like, gaming and like watching TV shows and movies and stuff as entertainment, and like you're competing for people's attention. 100%. So games aren't just competing with games. TV isn't just competing with TV. No, you're all competing you're all in the same pool of competing for people's free time.
Yeah, you're completely right. So we will certainly watch this one with interested eyes, because I think Netflix entering Netflix gaming or whatever that ends up looking to, and we all obviously know Amazon Luna. It's still not out. It wouldn't surprise me, actually. We didn't really cover it when we mentioned about the Summer Games Fest, but Amazon Games being there, that could be their big blowout party for Luna going global and being out of beta.
Yeah.
So that's, again, it's going to be another blow to the marketing we've got over here. So we'll watch that one. We'll watch that one as well. Next story of the week, moving on to back to some games talk, I guess. We have EA Studios... EA, I guess, not EA Studios. EA have announced they're opening a new studio led by former Shadow of Mordor executives as well for an open-world action-adventure game. Making some moves, EA. Making some moves with Codemasters, Respawn, and all the other things that are going on. So it'll be a while out. We know we've got 2 more games coming to Stadia from EA, so we'll drop this new segment in here as well. I personally love the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of Middle-earth game, whatever the franchise is called now. I love those games just in terms of that, but I'm more excited about getting another third-person action-adventure game. That's my jam. That's what I love. They've came out and said they've reunited EA Senior VP Group General Manager Samantha Ryan, who was former president at Monolith, with Stevens as well. Whether I've lost his first name, it just says Stevens 7 times. Stephen Evans? Evan Stevens.
Kevin Stevens.
Kevin Stevens. And he told them the action-adventure space is hugely important genre in our industry. Players and fans of those games are so passionate, and it's also one of my favourite genres. We recently had success with Jedi Fallen Order, which, again, pro game still to claim if you haven't done so already. And we'd love to entertain fans with similar interests. So, again, naturally, they look at the numbers, the figures, and EA... Bear in mind, I'm pretty sure it was EA who came out and said single-player games are dead, right? Not too long ago. And now having to kind of reel that back in and see how much...
EA... It feels like behind the scenes EA changing a lot of things after basically being the enemy of gamers for a long time. Like, there's a lot of things like they're realizing, like, you know what? It's probably been sales driven, like, because people just started looking at EA. I know this was a long time when I'd look at an EA title and go pass because it's EA. Or I'll get interested in it if when the reviews come out. I think I was even like that with Jedi Fallen Order, to be honest. Like, when the reviews are out, I'll have my interest, but before then it's kind of just by default pass because it's EA. But then when Jedi Fallen Order came out, it was like, there's no ridiculous like microtransactions in there. It's just the game. I was like, okay, you have my attention again.
And they never actually did any DLC or extra. No. They just did free content updates, which was surprising. So
again, this is why I think that's a move where I think they're just trying to almost rebrand themselves and move away from that period of EA. And stuff like a new action adventure game can be part of that. It's like, we're bringing out a single player action adventure game.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just not a constant multiplayer game. So like, we realise the value of people who aren't just multiplayer gamers.
Interesting stuff. I'm looking forward to it. And if they get the right IP, that by default would usually mean like you're guaranteed a trilogy. Like if one game comes out and it does well, that almost like by default is you get a second and a third follow up. So hopefully they get the right IP. Do we think they'll lean into an existing like franchise, or do you think they'll start something totally brand new from the ground up?
I was just having a quick look back through Monolith's back catalogue, and I was thinking maybe it would be probably about the right time, perhaps, that they do bring back the likes of The Matrix. Would be pretty awesome to jump into. They did. Monolith created The Matrix Online.
She's from Monolith. Monolith's Warner Brothers. She was the president of Monolith, moved to this new studio.
And then she moved to EA, so we're looking at new things.
I'd also argue that The Matrix is no longer relevant.
How dare you? There's a new movie coming out.
Yeah, but should there be?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Matrix 4 is going to reset everything.
So Keanu Reeves is back. I don't think at this moment in time the IP for The Matrix is strong enough to launch a big game on.
I would agree.
There could be a very good game in there, but I wouldn't be heavily leaning on the IP to sell that game.
So like I said, I stand corrected on that. So thank you there. But
John Wick.
Yeah, interesting then. So what sort of IP could we potentially look at?
I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think what like movies or what's out there that you could make into a third person. Yeah, it could be brand new, but it's safer to go with an existing franchise, which I think big businesses like. If I want to drop millions, they were comfortable doing it with Star Wars. Yeah. I feel like there's a franchise, an obvious choice sat out there that EA would go, Can we just use that to do something?
I don't know. I think with the perception of EA, it's almost safer for them to not use an existing franchise because there's still a bit of bad blood between EA and gamers. I think they are definitely moving in the right direction. But if it's a beloved franchise, someone's beloved franchise, and EA go, "Hey, we're making this game," it's like, "Oh, why is it yous making the game?"
Yeah,
Perhaps we'll just have to wait to hear more.
Yeah. It is more like that is Monolith, Tom. That is Monolith. It'll be interesting to see, and it's probably going to be some time. If they're announcing this now, it'll be a couple of years out. So we'll play it on Stadia in 2025 when the second of the two remaining EA games might come out. But interesting enough, speaking of franchises and IP, that perfectly segues into our next story of the week, which is TimeSplitters, gentlemen, is making a return. I was so happy when I read this news.
When I heard the news, I was like, Chris is smiling right now.
So, Deep Silver, part of the Embracer Group, the THQ Nordic conglomerate that we know. We talk about the stories. We talk about these because we know they have games out on Stadia, and they're a big company who clearly seem happy doing things. Interesting enough, published by EA, this game, Richie, to go back into the last story. Deep Silver have announced that they're not only reviving the studio Free Radical Design, they are back with the exact same name, which is fantastic. They're bringing on developers from the original titles to head up the campaign, which is, again, fills me full of like great pride, because I think getting the OG people on board goes a long way for understanding, rather than just taking the IP and giving it to, say, people who might grew up with it, which isn't a bad thing. I just think having people with one hand on the steering wheel who were there originally bodes quite well for it. We don't know what it's going to look like, whether it's a remake, a remaster, a brand new title yet. But I'm just thrilled, finally, after owning... They bought the IP ages ago now. They're finally putting it to task. So they tweeted out saying, "You've asked and we've listened," which is always a great start for fans. We've been working on plans to bring TimeSplitters franchise back to life, and pleased to let you know that we are setting up a new Deep Silver development studio to do just that. Free Radical Design is reforming and will be headed up by industry and TimeSplitters veterans, Steve Ellis and David Doak. This is an exciting first step in the process. Development on a new game has not started, and we'll update you with more news when we have it to share. They're kind of similar to the EA story. This is a long, long way off. But in a world of Overwatch and Apex Legends and Fortnite, TimeSplitters did this before it was even a thing. So I can't wait. It's time to split. Just give me it now. Any takes on this, guys? What do you think it could look like? Are you excited for TimeSplitters, or is it just me in my own little bubble?
I don't have much history with TimeSplitters, but I'm excited that it's happening. It's always nice to see like beloved IPs re-emerge, and it seems like they're doing the right thing. They're getting people who know the franchise, know it inside and out, to head up this thing. It's like, it seems like every move they've made for this is the right one. So yeah, let's see what happens in a couple of years.
You're absolutely right. I think if the fans call for it and it eventually gets answered, then you can but hope that it's going to be a good sort of, it's going to be true to the originals, really. But there's one thing, like, being really hyped for these things. Sometimes you can actually see some huge success out of it, but we have to wait with bated breath, because who knows? Sometimes it ends up not being too brilliant.
It could be a while away. It
could be
stuff that should be closer, though, gentlemen. Moving on to the next story, we got some games rated for Stadia this week. So in light of not having any actual blog news, thankfully, the ESRB have our back with rating games, and there's a few articles out there, but we'll go through them. We'll break them down. Few more interesting than others, I'm sure, for ourselves and our audience out there. But to start things off, I want to go with Lies of P, which, not a great name, if I'm honest, for what the franchise actually could potentially be. It looks great. I'm going to read an article from Polygon here, where they've titled it, "What if From Software made Pinocchio?" Which is such an intriguing, enticing concept unto itself.
Oh, yeah.
It's a Souls-like action RPG that blends the classic children's story of Pinocchio with the plague-filled horrors of Bloodborne. Developed by Round 8 Studios and published by NeoWiz, the game is slated to come to Google Stadia, PlayStation 5, Windows PC, and Xbox Series X. So it's a totally next-gen game, which chits all over our SideQuest episode from last week, Richie.
Yeah, it kind of does.
But the trailer looks eerie, creepy. It's like steampunk Pinocchio in like 1800s France or something, like France Paris or something like that. Not the cheery Disney movie with the giant whale and the donkey that you may be thinking of. Tom, I probably want to throw this one over to you, being such a Souls fan yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What does this do for you?
I love it. I absolutely love it. When I saw the trailer for this, I just thought, give it to me now. Like, I can't wait to 2023. Like, why announce this so far in advance? Now I'm literally just going to be looking for every little tiny little nugget of information. But yeah, I can't wait to see how they pull the strings behind this one here, because I really like the idea of it. I think that from my own personal memory, like, Pinocchio is one of the Disney films and the stories that I don't remember watching much, because I actually remember it not being all happy and clappy, but actually being really kind of weird and dark.
It is quite trippy at times when the tending the donkeys and the smoking and then the giant whale consumes. It's like, as a kid, I remember too, like, I didn't even know what was going on at that point. I thought it was just a happy little wooden puppet with his cricket friend.
When you think of sort of the concept around it, the idea of the story and how bizarre it actually is, I think it fits perfectly into this sort of Soulsborne sort of world. Bloodborne is very much set in, it's very Victorian era England. This, if you take it, with that sort of, like, as you say, that Renaissance, maybe like French resistance sort of look to it, yeah, absolutely. Like, this could be extremely good. But title, like you say.
Yeah, I was saying to Richie kind of pre-show that it's such a cool, dark concept. Lies of P. P is not a good, like, P is something you do when you go to the toilet. It's such an odd title, like, because it's got like a very steampunk, creepy ass looking Pinocchio here, and there's definitely violence, and it's dark and it's gritty, and it's like kind of brooding with death almost, and it's called Lies of P. It's like,
it just feels like the title is a lot weaker than the game looks. It's like,
yeah, like, with that, right, fresh in my mind, the Strings of Death. Anything just kind of lands differently with it. Copyright.
Even just the Lies of Pinocchio would be better than the Lies of P.
Anything like that. But again, the time will tell. It could still change. But saw the article, saw the headline. Interestingly enough, for Stadia, alive and well. This is 2 odd years out, guys, and it's true next gen. So the marketing, again, we understand the marketing is happening, but it's being done by other companies. Whereas that could have been in the blog this week, right? Like, I know it's a ways out, but it could have been a story of note to commit to next gen.
To E3. This could have been something they announced at E3 that announced on Google's platform.
Yeah, and we're delighted to say
you get this trailer of it's coming to Google Stadia in 2023, and like just stare down the camera, like, in 2023, we're still going to be around, guys.
Yeah, that's what I would love. Again, like that stage presence, and we've partnered with our friends over at Roundhead Studios to bring the creepy, dark, brooding Lives of P to Stadia in 2023, showing our commitment to next gen titles, and but. Again, time will tell. The article speaks for itself. But that is just one of the many titles rated this week. Moving on, Tom, I'm going to throw this one over to you again. The second ESRB rating we got was Moonlighter. And the reason I passed it over to you, because you've played this game before, and you're a huge fan. I saw your enjoyment over on Twitter. Tell us about Moonlighter. What is it? Why do you like it so much?
So, once again, it is I'd say it's more of like an indie title. It's definitely a roguelite sort of game as well. And you know how much I love those folks, those of you who are long-time listeners of the show. We're not going to go into the whole roguelite versus roguelite again. No. But did either of you ever play Digimon World on the PlayStation?
I did not.
I may have had a demo disc.
There was a lovely little element of it where you had to manage a shop as part of the game. So you could, as part of some of the quests, there'd be little shops within the game, and you'd go in there and you'd take the role of a shopkeeper. And you'd have different Digimon would come in and out of the shop throughout the day, and they'd basically try to haggle with you for items that you were selling. And if you got to hit that sweet spot in order to try and make as much profit and not make a loss on it, but still make a good amount of money. Moonlighter takes 2 elements, one being that shop managing sort of element right there, and mixes it with a Legend of Zelda style dungeon crawler, where by day you're a shop manager, but by night you're a dungeon delver. So you go into the dungeons, you progress down as far as you can get during the night, up to the point that there are bosses, there's different dungeons you can go into, but any loot that you collect while you're in there, you then sell to the townsfolk during the day. And the whole idea is that you want to make cash, you want to reinvest in the town, build it up. It unlocks things like blacksmiths, alchemists, magicians, and stuff like that can start to build your own arsenal to being able to take it even further. It's a brilliant game. It's well worth checking out, and I am actually very hyped that it's coming to Stadia. So I really, really, really hope this ESRB rating is legit.
They usually have been, to be honest, the ESRB and the Peggy stuff when we get leaks through them. It's more of a case of usually when rather than if.
Yeah, we've seen some that have came out the following week. Like this could be on this Tuesday's blog, or for Rainbow Six Siege, it could be rated, and then we hear nothing for months on end about it. So hopefully it's the latter that comes. But interesting concept, like shop. It sounds such a cool premise. Shopkeeper by day, dungeon crawler by night, and the artwork looks fantastic. It's right up my street with that kind of like pixel art.
Not gonna lie. Since they've announced Moonlighter, my interest in Merrick's Market is out the window. This is what I'm looking forward to. I mean, I've played it on the Switch, I've played it on PC, but you know what? I will get it again on Stadia. It's that kind of game that I really enjoy. And just
guys, it's coming to Pro.
It's not a bad shout. It's not at all.
Yeah. But exciting. Looking forward to it. Any game that either of you two endorse always piques my interest even more, and I'm sure it will for our listeners out there too. So Moonlighter, keep your eyes out for that. You might be hearing it on this week's blog if there is one. Next up, we've got two games back to back, both coming from the Triassic, Jurassic, Cretaceous period potentially. First game rated was Gigantosaurus. Rated on the ASRB website. So looking at the trailer for this game, it's a race around the world of Gigantosaurus and help Tiny, Mazu, Bill and Rocky save their world. I'm guessing from extinction, maybe? I'm not sure what other threats are plaguing these cute little dinosaurs, but essentially it is a 3D puzzle platformer, kind of akin to SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now I'm looking at the video. 4 characters. Tom, you mentioned it looks like it's got like little elements of kart racing. Similar to most 3D platformers, there's always like mini games within like certain areas. Kind of looks like that.
The ASRB rating actually says this is a racing adventure game.
So like Crash Team Racing, maybe.
That's an odd combination of genres, to be honest, but okay.
We'll take it. Again, obviously inclined towards a younger audience that's out there. Yeah. Don't know when it's coming.
Heavily inspired by the likes of Spyro as well.
Yeah, it kind of does, and it's interesting that we got two of these games back to back, because we might as well combine the two of them, because at the same time, I mentioned the same era almost. We got Ice Age Scrat's Nutty Adventure, also rated for ESRB, which is exactly the same thing. It's a 3D puzzle platformer. Clearly with a bigger budget than Gigantosaurus, because the definition and detail and the quality of textures is outstanding in comparison, looking at the two side by side. If I was to pick two, I'm 100% down on my man Scrat. Big fan of Ice Age back in the day, just like the seminal movie Shrek, Richie. That was a great movie back in the day. Amazing soundtrack, go listen to it if you've not watched that recently. But yeah, Ice Age, Scrat, like you said, Tom, it reminds me of Spyro. Go collect things, fight dinosaurs, the video, solve prehistoric puzzles, classic 3D platforming. Visually, the water and stuff on this trailer for Scratch looks really, really good. I'm actually super impressed by that one.
It does look very high budget, which is bizarre. It's so bizarre for a game like this.
As someone who had my first look went live on our channel free feeds this week for SpongeBob, this is insane detail. Like it looks great. So yeah, Ice Age Scrat's Nutty Adventure.
Who's making it? Like who's the developer?
Don't even know. I didn't even realise Ice Age was still relevant in the public eye. Honestly, I know they had they must be on 7 or 8 movie entry at this point. But
right. So this game apparently initially came out on PS4 in 2019, developed by Just Add Water and published by Outright Games, Namco Bandai.
Okay.
But yeah, and it got Metacritic of 55%.
So Just Add Water are more well known for the more recent sort of remasters of games like the Oddworld games. They redid like the I think they didn't do the Abe's Odyssey stuff. They did like the later ones like Munches and Strangers and stuff like that. They did do Micro Machines World Series as well, Chris. I know you're a big Micro Machines fan. Just add water. But yeah, no, it looks really, really good. It's just a shame, really, that we're seeing 2 dinosaur games come ESRB rated for Stadia. Yet still no news about Ark, being as the DLC has now been delayed as well. Was due to come out imminently within the next couple of days of this blog post. The Tuesday blog post, probably. But now it looks like it's not going to be until June. So will we still get that? I have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, we did theorize about Ark being like a late pro game for the month, and everyone on the internet theorized that because the DLC came out on 25th of May, that would be the date it came to Stadia, because the DLC I think was rated for that on Stadia.
Yeah.
By proxy, that's all been pushed back to June, and Ark was early 2021, and definition of early, clearly playing with the words, just like with the Google TV announcement of first half of 2021. You've got a few weeks left, guys. A few weeks left. So yeah, Scratch Nerdy Adventure, Gigantosaurus, you'll have to take your pick of which dinosaur adventure you would like to go on Stadia when they finally do drop. Switching things over a little bit, keeping on the game's focus, but in terms of news, our friends over at Outriders, damn it, Richie, this is you in pre-show. Outcasters, yes, Outcasters, my apologies, and Splash Damage. They announced this week in an odd sort of way, in an email. I got an email from Stadia saying that the publisher of Outcasters will change to Google from Google LLC to War Chest Limited, and the terms and conditions will apply. You can still play. Nothing else changes. You can still play the game on Stadia just like before. Game on. The Stadia team. Random midweek email. Did not expect that kind of communication, but
I think it's literally, it is a bit random, but I think it is purely just from a legality perspective that they have to say that the publisher, because Stadia Games and Entertainment no longer exists, which was under the Google LLC brand, that it's just they just have to hand it over to somebody else to effectively manage, I suppose, in a way, really. So that's that. I don't know whether to read any more into it, but
if it's been handed over to a different publisher, do we think, and I've seen a lot of people on Twitter ask, does this actually mean we might see more content for the game? Because we've kind of been critical of them before, saying that the game came out and then we've had nothing bar the original 4 maps or gameplay modes. They've not really done much since its November launch.
True. I mean, my suspicions would be whether shifting it away from the Google brand is going to potentially open it up for losing exclusivity and go multi-platform instead, because
I think that would be the best thing for the game, because it gives it access to a larger audience, so more people can play it, which then means there's more money coming back in to actually work on more content.
So do we think this means Stadia's ties with it are gone? So we'd like to think it might go with crossplay, would be in their best interest as well.
That would be the ideal situation. It goes crossplay.
I can see the articles writing themselves already.
Yeah.
Game changes to get player base in or something like that. But if it benefits the player base, then it's all for the better.
Stadia exclusive Outcasters.
Outcasters escapes Google graveyard.
Yeah, something by going multi-platform or some shit like that. No doubt. Anyway, we enjoy Outcasters, what we played of it. It just didn't have the longevity. So hopefully it might get a little bit of a boost that it needs from those people over there at War Chest. Final topics of the week as we branch into them, gentlemen. There was a big Google event, believe it or not, this midweek. Google I/O took place in California, and they presented loads of stuff from their new tech. And there's a couple of bullet points that will break down that. They're not Stadia specific, but they do pertain to Stadia news, because funnily enough, Stadia wasn't mentioned in the whole Google technology event. But there's a couple of details that we do want to drill down into. One for you, Tom. I'm hoping you can explain this a little bit to me more. And this is why this article's in there. As the techie teacher, I did watch the I/O event, and I was listening in, and they mentioned TPUs and generation of a different processing unit. And all I really garnered from it was that this thing is insanely powerful, and they did wrap up by mentioning that they'll apply it to their Google Cloud customers, which by default I would expect would be their Google Cloud Stadia customers as well. And I have no clue what these TPU pods do, what they're capable of. There was a part where they got Michael Pena from Ant-Man to go into an actual like laboratory over in America and kind of discuss in a simplified manner, but I still didn't really get it. I just know it sounds like a badass thing. So a tensor processing unit, TPU, Tom. Give us the brief synopsis from your point of view of what this thing is.
It's a little bit outside my knowledge range, but I'm happy to give it a go. So it's an AI processing chip. So this is specifically used, I say specifically, mainly used, I should say, for the development of AI more than anything. But what really impresses me here is that just having a look through all of these stats, a typical pod of 4,096 TPUs is reportedly capable of speeds of over 1 exaflop. Now, an exabyte or an exaflop is not a term you hear a lot about, but that's actually an incredibly large amount, because you hear of things like gigabytes, terabytes. Moving up from there, we've got petabytes. Then we've got the likes of like exabytes and yottabytes and stuff like that. So we're talking like literally like millions and millions of gigabytes of
So a lot of flops.
Yeah, a lot of flops within the case of a second, really. So we're talking really, really detailed mathematical processing more than anything. So who knows, really? But if we saw like the power of this behind the cloud and behind Stadia in particular, we could see some pretty impressive things. Yeah, just a shame there's no Stadia Games and Entertainment around to capitalize on that.
Like, even if they just said in the presentation, like, for our cloud customers and our gaming platform, like, that would have just been a throwaway comment that would have been like, oh shit, this stuff could be applied to the future of gaming, and I'm sure it will be at some point. But just seeing the tech and whatever that crazy lab looked like, it genuinely looked like it could have been in Ant-Man, or like the freezing cryogenic units they said to keep it cool and all that. It's like, wow, I don't even know, like, Michael Pena making it the most fun it possibly could have been, because it all just went over my head. But that was one of the things that came out of I.O. Another one I wanted to link in with, 9 to 5 Google picked this one up, is that they announced that Google TV and Android TV doing quite well, guys. Over 80 million active devices right now. That's a combination of smart TVs, the Chromecast sticks, and the built-in kind of ecosystem within any of the smart devices that are out there. Kind of combats Roku and Amazon efforts a little bit. Were announced end of 2020. Also saw massive growth. And I think this is just where, as a society, we move away from traditional television set-top boxes to on-demand content.
Well, that's it. I think as with people moving to more like streaming services and stuff, having a box under your TV that plays shows at specific times, it kind of just feels incredibly archaic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, I'm not surprised.
I'm also not surprised by the success of these as well and the growth, because it's got a really slick UI and it performs really, really well. Like, buying that Chromecast with Google TV was one of the best things I've bought recently, I'd probably say. We use it on a daily basis, and if we're talking like 80 million plus devices, I better get rolling that Stadia update out sooner rather than later, guys.
5 weeks. 5 weeks left. And of course, we know the LG combination is coming later this year. Sony launched its first Google TV this year as well. And specifically, one of the stats they quoted was they've seen more than 80% growth in the United States alone. So that's phenomenal growth. And we've said it since when we first considered Stadia being applied to smart TVs. That's a big user base that you're getting yourself into their kind of like their mind's eye, their optics of it all. And we've said it was only going to be a matter of time. But can that, even if just a small percentage of that translates into Stadia players, that's huge.
The Wii one for me is the perfect time, because they said they've been pretty insistent that it's still early this first half of this year. Mm-hmm. So the Google I/O event would have been the perfect place, even if Stadia's not having a big moment in the spotlight. When you're talking about the Chromecast devices, this would have been the perfect time to go, and they will be supporting Stadia in the next month.
Yeah.
Agreed. So interesting stuff to come out of it, and that kind of comes to our last story from Google I/O, and that is that Google are going to open up their first physical retail store. So like an Apple store, but for Google stuff instead. And I lied earlier on, gentlemen. I apologise. I lied when I said Stadia wasn't at the I/O event. It was. If you zoom in on this picture of a concept retail store, zoom right into the window display, you can see a little red S in the sixth window in from the left, there is a tiny little fraction of a red S.
Are we sure?
Oh,
are we
God,
sure
yeah,
that's the? Are we sure that's the Stadia S and not Worm Game?
Oh, I wish it was Worm Game, but yeah, physical retail. So we know Apple have done this for years.
Yes.
They make their presence known. They've got some really surreal way, like the wood in the Apple stores is sourced from a particular forest that can only be felled at a certain time of year to get the right grain. The slate tiles on the floor from a particular quarry in a part of the world that Apple had to buy the quarry just to get that specific type of stone, and all the other stuff that makes an Apple store what it is. Google are launching one in New York. It's below the headquarters in Chelsea. I'm sure it'd be amazing. If I was in New York, I would 100% go and have a browse around. It's probably going to look very similar to an Apple store in all respects. But hopefully we'll see our very first physical Stadia presence outside of a pop-up. Because we've had the events that were like in London, Paris, Berlin when Google Stadia launched. But we've theorised on the podcast for a long, long time. Stadia has like zero physical presence on our high streets, on our billboards, on our bus stops. This could be the workings of getting them into people's hands and actually being able to play and realise that, oh, it plays games. It's an actual controller in front of me that I can hold and see working. I might buy into this. And we'll see.
Even just like any like technology stores like Curry's PC World in the UK, you could just have the Premier Edition on thing, and then when they have the demo units out, just a screen for Chromecast and the controller there, so people could just try it out. That would be so easy to do.
Yeah.
And then people, oh my god, this works.
Yeah. My worry, the risk, I guess, for that is that the internet in those stores is usually crap because it's inside a big metal warehouse and it's used to playing videos on loops. That's the risk, but I don't see the problem in having like the controllers out. We've said in with all the Google tech that's usually on display, like the Pixels and the Chromecasts and the hub speakers. But again, exciting stuff. It's I'm good to see they're having that brick and mortar presence because as someone who's witnessed, I'm sure our entire lives, the high street slowly cripple and fall away from us. Everyone remembers Woolworths, right? Throwback to Woolworths for our UK listeners. But we've seen it change, and a stores is great. But that was the last from I.O. Like I said, Stadia's there if you zoom in, zoom right in, just about to see it. But that's it for I.O. News, gentlemen. Final story of the week as we wrap up this week's show is Square Enix has said that Outriders, not Avengers, is their next big franchise as it reaches 3.5 million unique players across all platforms, Stadia included. People Can Fly, co-op focus shooter, has achieved apparent success. Surprised? Shocked? Intrigued? Gonna buy it?
None of the above, actually.
I don't know. I've sort of like got a bit of a mixed feeling about this, and I suppose that comes from somebody on the Stadia side of things, where we really didn't see much support from People Can Fly in terms of like updating and getting the Stadia version out. We seem to have this sort of like weird mantra at the moment where games tend to get rushed out with the 1.0 version on Stadia, and then they just sort of leave it as is and don't patch it whatsoever. But great for Square Enix, I suppose. Like, it's nice that they've finally got a looter shooter that seems to be potentially doing okay.
It's an interesting one from the article standpoint because I've said it before, I listened to a lot of gaming podcasts kind of through the week from multiple different outlets, and it got loads of hype at launch and everyone was loving it and enjoying it, and then I feel like it's just gone off a cliff and it's gone radio silent. I don't hear anybody talking about it or playing it anymore. No one I know, friends or podcasters, are playing it. I hope it does well because the better this does, the more it kind of funds Square Enix to put more money into Avengers, which I do enjoy. And again, that's gone radio silent. We're hopefully going to hear about Wakanda and stuff at E3 or Summer Games Fest. But yeah, credit where credit's due. I enjoyed what I played of the demo when the game came around. I just kind of, my interest just... when you have to click purchase, the week it was about to come out, something changed where I don't know whether I was distracted, but I just never bit the bullet and bought. I think it was probably finances. It came out near the end of the month, right? I was probably skint.
The demo, it never gripped me. I don't know what it was. I just like, I never found myself wanting to play the game. It's not. I don't think it's a reflection on the game. It's just a reflection on the games I wanted to play at that moment in time. Like, I remember having thinking, all right, I am going to sit down. I am going to play this demo bit because I've said it on the podcast that I will.
Yeah, we did indeed.
So I was like, yeah.
But good thing for this though is it's going to be constantly supported with new content drops, which they've already said they're grateful for the community, the feedback. They've assured that they're going to listen carefully going forward because they did have a few server issues, and like Tom, you alluded to it, the issues with Stadia is like day one point version or kind of issues that came with that. But time will tell on that one. Interesting numbers, of course. It did launch on Xbox Game Pass, so how these numbers have fudged a little bit, maybe 3.5 million. How many of them are just people who jumped in for 20 minutes and then went, meh, it's all right, bounce it out? Is that classed as a unique user, or is that just someone who's played it? So interesting stuff. But we'll be keeping an eye on that one. Funny you should mention it. Reminded me, Tom, when you said about the version 1.0. My first look at SpongeBob, go check the video out. The opening scene with our titular characters of Plankton, SpongeBob and Patrick, the audio is not synced.
It's terribly out
I
of sync,
cannot believe.
Really?
Yeah, Richie.
it's
I thought it
awful.
was me. I closed the game down, booted it back up. Same again. It starts with a cutscene of Plankton saying he's going to take over the world, and then it cuts to SpongeBob and Patrick in the pineapple house.
Plankton's still speaking.
And Plankton's still, and it's like a good 20 seconds out of sync. And I thought it was me trying to do recording and messed it all up. I had a Google, and it was on the Switch version, the Steam version. And Stadia obviously being one of them, but nobody picked that story up. And then it's gone on a pro game, so this is like weeks, months after its release on the platform, and the opening cutscene, the audio is not synced for that game. It corrects itself once you get into the actual title, but like I'm sat there and I fast forward so the audience doesn't have to suffer through bad audio syncing, but like that's some of the issues that are plaguing the platform currently. The game comes out and the developers almost go, I'm out, see you later, enjoy, and like that's sort of like THQ sorted out. That's poor development from your point of view, not Stadia. Like, it's so bad. The first opening cutscene, it's not like 50 hours into the game,
Yeah,
it's the opening scene.
It's the opening scene. Surely this is one of the things that gets scrutinised the most in development. This is one of the first things literally playtesters will see. Like,
Yeah, they'd sit down and go, right, my job today is to see if this game works. Let's look for any bugs or required fixes. Something's not right here. Don't make any notes of it or pass it over to the devs. So, oh, yeah. Go check out the first look if you want to just watch me start my first look off in a bad place. But that's it for all the major news stories of the week. Thank you, gentlemen, of course, for joining me for this episode. We did want to do a special shout out, of course, to the Stadia team because they've just recruited a new social media manager. We don't know who you are yet. You probably don't know who we are yet. But if you happen to stumble across this podcast where we round up all the Stadia and gaming news in which you are now managing, Shaka Explains It All from Twitter, also known as @Princessology. A big fan of rollerblading so far is what we've gathered, and Stadia and all things Pokemon, which is definitely in our wheelhouse, guys.
Yep.
Who doesn't love
100%.
Pokemon? We certainly do. Gen 1 for the win. Pika Pika and all that jazz. But yeah, congratulations. Welcome to the team, the community, I guess. We'll hopefully have a lot more interaction with your tweets, your posts, Instagram, all that kind of jazz as we move forward alongside with Stadia together. But congratulations, welcome. And it's good to see Stadia making moves, Richie, again, Tom. They may not be talking about it, but when we dig a little bit deeper into stories, we're getting next gen Pinocchio games, we're getting social media managers recruited, we've got a store that's going to have Stadia in the window, albeit very, very tiny. There is good news out there, and we've rounded it all
They've
up.
literally just hired someone whose job is to talk about things.
Exactly.
Yay.
So exciting times. So cannot wait to see all the stuff that Shaka brings to the Stadia team as well. But gentlemen, as I said, that brings us to a wrap for episode 87. I don't know why my voice went funny for that one. Of the Sounds of Stadia podcast. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in, watched us on YouTube and our podcast services up there in the digital cloud. Remember to tune in on Thursday on soundsofstadia.com/YouTube. That's backwards. It's the end of the show. All the content. I'm trying to do like a really good round out, and evidently I'm doing a terrible job. I'm hungover, I'm dehydrated. But I think it's been a great show, guys. We've said some negative things. We've said some positive things. But that's just what it's all about when you
We've
cover
said some stupid things.
we said a lot of stupid things. Don't forget, this Thursday, check us out for our live stream, whatever game we may play. Join us in the chat if you will. And if you are a member of our channel, you will get exclusive access to stickers, early access to SideQuest, badges, all that exciting stuff, and early first look content too. After this, we're going to go record our SideQuest episode, and hopefully someone's going to hit record on the audio this week as we talk about what subject, Richie? Thought I'd get another one in there before the episode was over.
You know what? After that, you can say it yourself.
For SideQuest this week, we are going to go away and talk about what games are coming next to Stadia. We've covered a little bit in this podcast, but we always like to take a step off the critical path, Richie, and dive a little bit deeper into one particular Stadia subject. This week, what games are coming to the platform now Resident Evil Village is out? We're going to go talk about that. Members get it up to 6 days early, so check that one out. I'll make sure we record the audio, don't you worry. And we'll hope to see you over there. But that's it for this week. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
I've been an audio engineer.
We've been Sounds of Stadia. Have a great week, everyone. Take care, game on, and enjoy. Goodbye.
Bye.